with like receipts printed out fully. Like you have your stuff sewed together. I don't have a printer. Would never change a printer cartridge. You have like full color going on at your house out there in Chicago. It's really impressive.
I got a teaser.
Is that Jim Carrey? Fire Marshal Bill?
Alert.
Oh my gosh.
That is a teaser alert. Danger.
Fire Marshal Bill.
The woman has
We got a situation
together. All right, let's talk. Julio Jones. Time for the lead block. There's a couple great receivers in the NFC North, maybe the best in the game in Devontae Adams, and he, of course, is covered by one Stacey Dales. This guy is the guy, though. If you look at prototype, games, it's amazing. And there's been so many offseason rumors swirling about Julio that just this week, Steve Weish is telling us that the Falcons are going to continue to listen to trade offers for their two-time All-Pro wide receiver. Peter, you did call him the best wideout in the game still. And honestly, you didn't get much pushback from anybody on the panel when you said it. You just didn't. Should a team trade the farm for Julio Jones? And I don't even know, Sean, you can answer that question. Would it even take the farm to get Julio Jones? That's probably more of the question, but where would you like to start, O'Hara?
Yeah, great question, Kay. I got to first ask you a question. What kind of farm are we talking about here? Are we talking about a fish farm? Are we talking about a tree farm, a horse farm, a funny farm? I don't know. So we've got to let's put everything into context here, right? So you want Julio Jones. That's great. All right. What's it going to take to get him? So let's go back and just kind of look at some of the great NFL receivers that have been traded recently and what it took. What kind of farm, Kay, did it take to get this kind of caliber wide receiver? Stephon Diggs, 4 draft picks. All right. That's what it's taken. DeAndre Hopkins, I think this is why a lot of people had a hard time with this. It was just a 2nd and a 4th round pick. Of course, David Johnson was included in that. Brandon Cooks, just a 2nd round pick. And I think that was the trade from the Saints to the Patriots. Then I think the Patriots got a 1st rounder from the Rams to trade him there. And then OBJ, a 1st and a 3rd pick, and Jabril Peppers. So if you're a team that's got that kind of collateral, you have that kind of farm and that kind of produce, then yeah, go out and get this guy. Look, I know he missed 7 games last year. He's always seems like he's playing through something, a foot, a nagging knee injury. But no doubt about it, if you're a corner in the NFL and number 11 breaks the huddle and comes out and lines up over you, there's a little bit of you that thinks that, you know what, I'm about to get posterized. Like Stacey Dales did to so many defenders in the Big 12 throughout her career. You're about to make somebody's highlight reel, and not for a good reason. So, yeah, I think Julio is worth it for a team if you have a quarterback that can stretch the field and if you have the ability as a play caller to find ways to move him around.
Well, Sean, the only thing that happened to Stacey Dales was her body crumbled and she got old, okay? Julio Jones is still rock solid. I know he missed almost half of last season with the hamstring injury. He still had almost 800 receiving yards. So I'm like, yeah, dump the farm. Let's go get him. I don't know of a team that would not want Julio Jones. I understand that money is an issue, which may be the very reason he doesn't end up an Atlanta Falcon, right? Because they're barely breaking even. It seems only plausible that he has to be traded because they don't have money. And he's due quite a bit of money. But we all want to think about Pitts and we all want to think about Ridley and this offense. And Matt Ryan said, guys, this week, nobody has had more impact, significant impact on my career than a certain Julio Jones. So for me, I'm like, let's break the bank. I'm looking at teams that need big time wide receivers. I still think he has plenty in the tank. I mean, he's been pretty durable throughout his career, you guys. Even back to 2019, 2 seasons ago, he was putting up electric numbers. Julio Jones is amazing. And T.Y. Hilton did a question and answer, by the way, a Colts wide receiver. Who's the best receiver in the league not named a Colt? He just wrote Julio on his question and answer. So I don't know if Chris Ballard would go for it, Schrags, but because we know how Chris Ballard operates to a degree, a little more conservative. But I think, wow, can you imagine him with Carson Wentz and the Indianapolis Colts? I'm sure, though, there's a couple of other teams that would love to get in on the Julio dibs.
Yeah, look, Ballard and his chief lieutenant up there, Ed Dodds, those guys, they don't go big in free agency, but they've never been scared to make a big play, whether it be Phillip Rivers or Carson Wentz or to bring in a DeForest Buckner on a trade if that player is worthy of it. And I think Indianapolis makes a lot of sense. I think we've heard a lot of rumors about Baltimore. I mean, those AFC teams do it, but to me, I go out west and I look at the two teams that have been most aggressive this entire offseason, and that's been the Rams and the 49ers. And they have been tit for tat chess match the entire time since McVay and Shanahan got out there. And Julio might be the final piece to this puzzle for both teams. Let's start with the Los Angeles Rams and why I think it makes sense. First off, the ethos of what the Rams have been over the past few seasons. We don't value draft picks. We don't care about draft picks. Take our draft picks. We want star veteran players. And that goes from Matt Stafford to Ndamukong Suh to Brandon Cooks to Clay Matthews to whoever else. And we have a guy who knows Julio quite well. Julio's best seasons as a pro came with a wide receivers coach named Raheem Morris. Raheem Morris went from being a defensive coach his whole life to a wide receivers coach in Atlanta, where he and Julio bonded like few coach and players ever have. What do? They get together, they go to a Super Bowl. Julio basically has one of the greatest wide receiver seasons you'll ever see. Raheem is the wide receivers coach. We know Morris now got elevated, going back to defensive coordinator, then interim head coach. Guess where he is now? He's the Rams defensive coordinator with Sean McVay. A great fit for Julio to go somewhere where he feels comfortable with a coach in that building that he knows well. However, that same season that he had that great year, who was the offensive coordinator calling all the shots in Atlanta? That guy, yes. Kyle Shanahan. So it's like, pick your poison here. Two great connections for Julio in the NFC all the way out west. And then I know you at home are saying, okay, they don't have a farm to sell for him. If you have been watching the NFL, there's always a farm to sell in the last couple of years. How are the Rams going to get Jalen Ramsey? They figured it out. Why would the Niners trade up to 3? Well, they did, and it happened. That's just what they did, and they're going to do it. Julio Jones is a special creature. He is an alien when it comes to NFL wide receivers and how good this guy is when he's healthy. Both these teams, they play it loose. They are aggressive. They have play callers that want to get the ball out, go deep, and make plays. I don't know. I mean, honestly, it might take Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, and 3 first-round picks in the 2030s, but I don't think it's crazy if that's what it is to get Julio Jones. Pick Kupp, pick Woods, take one of them, and then here, take all our draft picks until, until Arch Manning is our president in the United States. Like, literally, just rate us of future picks. Wow. We don't care. Go for it. I feel like that's what it might take. And if you're the Niners,
what kind of farm you're on.
Just give up your 2 first-round picks. No, but seriously, take Debo, take Ayuk, take one of these guys.
The Rams don't have any first-rounders ever. Yeah.
No, they never do. For the next
I like that there's 2 teams.
But take our second-round picks.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, Sean McVay is never going to make a first-round pick as the head coach of the Rams. It's just like that's death taxes, and that's a fact. I like that you're saying. Is it going to take the farm, though, Schrager? That's what you're saying is premium. Don't they have the leverage? I guess if they outbid each other, Atlanta's then sitting in a better spot than I thought that they were. But the jig is kind of up. Like whoever's trading for Julio is saving the Falcons $15 million against the cap. They're doing Atlanta a favor. They could really use him off their books. So I think they lose a bit of that leverage, right? Doesn't that drive down the cost of what any team, whether it's those 2 West Coast teams or whoever, would have to give up to get him? You have the leverage a little bit. You go to him to Atlanta and they say, he's 32. You know, Stacey, he has been dealing with injuries, in my opinion. You're taking on 3 more years of his contract and you do trade for him. I'm not saying I wouldn't love to have him on my team. I'm saying that there are reasons that you don't really have to give up the farm the way that most people might think for a receiver of the caliber of Julio Jones. Is that wrong to think? It's really going to cost that much to get him?
No, it's absolutely right. Okay, he's so expensive, and you'd have to probably rip up the deal and put a new one together. That's the biggest hindrance in this thing. The injuries are one thing. We know what he can be. He makes so much money, and that's the problem. So do you go to Julio and say, we're going to bring you in here. We need you to rewrite this deal. You might take a little bit less and start anew, and that's really the only way this works for any of these teams. Although I'm looking at Arizona, and DeAndre Hopkins makes $27 million a year. And they're not ripping up his deal. Like some wide receivers, if you think he's worth it, some wide receivers, they might be worth that ticket.
But you guys are talking
I just feel like
Sorry, Kay. You guys are talking about the injuries. Just look at the stats historically. I can't get past this. Like, yes, he has some injuries. He plays the game at an extraordinary level. He's a physical receiver. He's downfield. He's taking gruesome hits. He played and started in 15 games in 2019, all 16 in 2018, all 16 in 2017, all 16 in 2015. In the year between, 14 starts out of 14 games. I mean, I still think he's durable. I still think he's got stuff in the tank.
I just like the idea of